I'll admit it, I miss fantasy football, but hold up, didn't I quit back in 2021 and I made a whole video about why I quit fantasy football and I might never do it again? Well, that is true. I didn't do fantasy football at all in 2022, and now in 2023, I did it. I completed a full season. Let's go. I got a winning record. Hashtag the road to 500. But let's do a quick recap on why I quit fantasy football. Number one, a financial burden. Number two, I felt left out and just wasn't really having fun, didn't really know the people in the league. And number three, lack of experience. That lack of experience led to losing, and that losing just kind of made me feel like I was doing this all for no reason. And that all changed this year when I co-commissioned a league with some of my high school friends. We met up at my house for draft day, and we met up online to do NFL watch parties and also in person one of those Sundays, and it was a complete blast. And I had a winning record, 8-6, and I made the playoffs. But this guy took me down.
What you got? He went Clyde Edwards! What? Yo, he looks lucky. He went Clyde!
Yeah, the team who beat me in the first round of the playoffs started Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was my bust pick all those years ago when I started out in fantasy football. So it's a nice closure run. And also, my fantasy football playoff matchup literally went until the last final minutes of Monday Night Football. And I was watching there with my brother on the couch a day after going to space at 4 a.m. So I was super exhausted, but I was just tuned into the game because maybe I could win a playoff game, which I still have never done in fantasy football. I guess that would be my goal for next year.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
But I lost on this play right here.
Locke airs it out. Metcalf downfield. He's got it.
So I guess this is a good time to congratulate the person who beat me, who also actually ended up winning the next two games and winning the whole thing. The team's name was Kelsey Undercover. I made a little trophy for the team owner, and he made some nice quality trades to go get Nico Collins, to go get Joe Mixon, to go get James Conner throughout the year, and they all paid off massively in his playoff run. And he also had the CJ Stroud, Nico Collins stack. He actually picked up CJ Stroud the same week I picked up Dak Prescott. And if you look at my final starting roster, not including defense and kicker, 3 out of my 7 positions were people I drafted, like Jahmyr Gibbs, Travis Etienne, Jay Jettas, who kind of let me down with that injury. Even though he tweeted about fantasy owners texting him or DMing him please come back, I need you. I did not text him, just to be clear, but Jay Jettas did text that, and I did desperately need him on my roster since he was my 101 consensus pick, which that pick is cursed, but that's a whole fantasy football rabbit hole if you want to get into that. My fantasy football team did pretty well. I picked up Dak Prescott and Trey McBride on the waiver wire, and they were both second half breakouts, and they played great for me. I also drafted James Cook pretty late in the draft, and I was actually super hyped up on him. I knew he was going to play well, so I was very proud of that draft pick. But I also had another draft pick in Cam Akers, who completely busted, but not really, because I was buying into the Rams backfield, and the Rams backfield did very well with Kyron Williams, who broke out. And there's so many what ifs with my fantasy team. What if Jay Jettas never got injured? What if I never traded away Amara, the sun god, Mr. St. Brown himself, away to another team for Chris Olave and Breece Hall? What if Chris Olave doesn't get injured the last final weeks? What if Dak Prescott puts up more than 6 points in the first round of my playoffs? And what if I just put $1 more on Kyron Williams after week 1 to get him on my fantasy football team? That's the story of fantasy football. I lost a fab tiebreaker. I bid the same amount as someone else, and someone else got Kyron Williams, and I didn't. That's just how fantasy football is. You just gotta put your hands up and acknowledge it's mostly luck, but that's what makes it fun. It's not some super chess strategy that you're gonna be playing 4D chess and check your lineups for 1 hour every day. No, you can just check in fantasy football, spend 30 minutes a week on it, the whole entire week, a little bit here on Wednesday for waiver wire, a little bit here on Sunday to make sure your players are playing and not injured. And you can just talk with the people in the league and just know what's happening like culturally in fantasy football and football in general. Taylor Swift. And you could just have a fun time. And I guess I'll go back to those 3 reasons. The financial burden, this league was like a paid league, and I just think that's like very important just to make sure everyone has like a little incentive, because bragging rights is like the true number one, is what you're really going for with all your friends. But the money prize is nice, and now like my financial situation's way better, and this league was only $15, so that's not really that much. It's like 2 Chipotle bowls, so using the Chipotle bowl equivalent. And then it was basically a lot of people that I know, and then there's some people I didn't know but got to know them better throughout the season. And now that I actually have 2 years of fantasy football experience under my belt, I mean, it's crazy to say like something that is so just given into luck you need experience for, but you actually do need experience. Like I did this little statistical and analysis on like, if you use your fab, are you more likely to win? And there was only like a 0.35 correlation, which is like a very weak positive correlation, but there was a correlation that if you do spend more money on free agents, you are more likely to win. And if you actually take out the person who is 10th, the positive correlation skyrockets all the way to 0.8. And that's because the people who didn't really, like the people who missed the playoffs, because in my league, 6 out of 10 people made the playoffs. The people who kind of just missed the playoffs, they weren't really like too active. And I think that's like part of it. And they're also like brand new to fantasy football, so they didn't really have any experience. They didn't really know the draft process and just trying to pick the best player available every single time, and the waiver wire and navigating injuries and IR slot management, et cetera, et cetera. So there actually is a learning curve to fantasy football, believe it or not. Like, for example, because I knew this was a single quarterback league, I didn't draft a quarterback at all. And people were looking at me crazy like, Max, you're not going to draft a quarterback? And I literally picked up Kirk Cousins in the last pick of the entire draft. And people are looking at me crazy, and I'm like, yeah, you don't need a quarterback. Quarterbacks are almost worthless unless you had like Josh Allen this year in one quarterback leagues, because you could find a player like C.J. Stroud or Dak Prescott in free agency, and they turn out to be like top 10 quarterbacks at the end of the year. And also to start the draft, I picked up like 4 out of 5 receivers, kind of went like 0 RB.
Next, you're looking at another receiver. I don't know who's going to tell you that you don't have a running back.
Thank you. But then I picked up some RB gems in the middle rounds with James Cook and Jahmyr Gibbs, and just threw a bunch of darts at running backs. And at the end, I actually had more running backs and more quality running backs than I did receivers, even though I went receiver heavy at the end. I blame you, Calvin Ridley. Even though in my ESPN fantasy recap, Calvin Ridley was my draft day steal, I would say that's actually Jahmyr Gibbs or James Cook, not Dalvin Cook, who the winner of the league drafted Dalvin Cook in the 4th round.
As you know,
Oh my god, he actually picked it.
I'm a Florida State no.
Oh my god.
I'm taking Dalvin Cook. What? That is a crazy pick.
He's at his house right now.
That is crazy. That is wild. That is the worst pick I've seen.
No wide receivers there.
That man's. He's one of the Jets go clean Brees Hall's boots, bro. What are you doing?
And ESPN Fantasy Football has a nice UI, and they actually created this whole thing. I'll roll like a mini clip here.
Your fantasy season is over. Unfortunately, there were some highs which were great, and there were some lows which were not great. But we hope that you had a ton of fun and that you come back and you do it again with us next year. But for now, let's take a look back at your personal fantasy flashback for this season.
And they show my top fantasy performers, Travis Etienne, Dak Prescott, Jay Jettas. They show Breece Hall like performing the big game. They show the closest game. So that was like a nice little like recap, kind of like a Spotify Wrapped or a Duolingo recap that they do yearly now. And honestly, this year, because of my mindset, because I wasn't like win or go home and have nothing mindset, I was just like, I'm glad to be experiencing this with everybody. Even if I had a losing record, which I'm glad I didn't, but even if I had a losing record, I still would have had fun, because I remember week 2, the person who did fantasy football for the second time went 2-0, and I lost to that team. We called them like the Rochester Moneyball Raiders, because, you know, like the Moneyball movie. Great sports movie, by the way. But he did like a whole spreadsheet at the draft to try and maneuver the ADP and pick the best players available with his own statistics. And he started out 2-0, and I was very happy for him to get the glory of starting 2-0. And me, I think I started like 1-1 or 0-2, but I knew I was going to be okay. I knew a fantasy football is like a long season. I just have to stay active, you know, listen to a fantasy football podcast here and there. Here's a great clip from one of my favorite fantasy football podcasts.
Adam Thielen, 4 for 43.
Oh, no.
Next week, I have to decide whether to play Adam Thielen
I'm so tired.
or Demario Douglas. Who would
Hey,
you play?
you won the game, though, man.
I know, but I partied. That's why I'm tired.
Were you out till like 9 p.m.?
7:30.
Okay.
Do you eat out of Luby's?
Oh, it's delicious.
Mike, this voice is getting retired with the boom boom kicker at the end of the year.
Says you.
And fantasy football, frankly, dominates culture. If you look at the podcast charts, fantasy football and football podcasts are top of the charts. You have coaches literally mentioning fantasy football, both Sean McVay and Mike McDaniel.
Achan, I know you were talking about him earlier. Given what you know about his injury, is he the type of guy that you'd be able to put back in his typical workload, or would you have to ease him?
Dude, what kind of money do you have in fantasy football?
Make sure we have great ball security, but if we can punch it in, Karen's on my fantasy team. It's a joke. It's a joke. I don't really mean that. All right, kidding.
And even my cousins who were like barely watching football years ago, they now had a whole family football league, which I was not invited to because I live outside of Miami. So I was not invited to a fantasy football league run by my own family, by my cousins. Come on, I gotta be in the league next year, right? But yeah, watching football live with other people is honestly one of the best things you could do, because people don't watch live TV anymore. 98 out of the top 100 events of 2023 for live TV were football games. Like, people literally don't watch live TV if it's not a football game or the Macy's Day Thanksgiving parade. So just hanging out with people, having conversations over the game, reacting, doing the highs and lows of American football. And as co-commissioner, I would try and keep the fun happening in the league. I would create the weekly recaps. I hosted the draft party. And overall, it was a great experience all around. And I got to watch Tank Dell put up this beautiful route before he got injured on my team. That's just like another what if, because I picked up Tank Dell for $2 after week 2 and also blew my entire budget on Jerome Ford. I put like $86 on Jerome Ford, and then for him he was like an all right running back the rest of the year, but I thought he would be like a solid RB1 or RB2, and he was just like around the flex range. But that's fantasy football for you. So, my league format was super basic. It did not have like 4 flex spots and like 7 bench spots. So it's like a super deep league, and the waiver wire has nothing. No, we only had 5 bench spots, so that kept the waiver wire like churning a lot. And I also had Rashi Rice, Mr. Stashy Rice, according to the r/fantasy football Reddit, on my team at one point. What if I didn't release him? But all these what ifs for me to win a championship. But there's always next year, right? And I gotta start all over again, a completely new team. But I truly love it though. We had a super basic format, which is honestly, I prefer it better than having like 3 flex spots, no tight end slot. I actually really do like having a tight end slot. I would even consider doing super flex and maybe adding an extra flex spot, but if we add an extra flex spot, I would actually take away another bench spot just to leave the same amount of players on the waiver wire. Because, I mean, just starting people with established names just makes you feel so much more comfortable, like starting Chris Olave and Justin Jefferson compared to like Jacoby Myers and whatever players from the waiver wire that were like flex appeal options throughout the year. It's just like, eh. And I think in the video that I made where I like quit fantasy football, which I did quit just temporarily, I said that like me losing prevented me from like truly appreciating the players that I love. And honestly, this year, without like the huge money stakes and money pressure for me to like win it all, or if not, I'm like losing like serious money and like a big percentage of my net worth, because fantasy football is technically gambling, like it is, but like it's fun, right? As long as you do it conservative and know your losses and make the experience more worth it than what the money you're putting in. Because $15, I think the draft day alone is more than $15 worth it to just hang out with friends and catch up with them, and just an excuse to talk about football when you're out at like hangout parties or whatever. It's all great. And I still enjoyed like watching the Miami Dolphins because I'm a Miami Dolphins fan, and obviously they had one of their best years ever. Tua Tagovailoa is probably my favorite athlete right now in football, and he had a great year. I mean, those passes in the Chargers game, like throwing on the move to Tyreek Hill, like for those several touchdowns, so many beautiful throws from Tua. That throw from Tua down the like seam to Jalen Waddle in the Jets game, that throw was beautiful. And even though Tua kind of like choked a bit in the Chiefs game, he still had a great year. My team name was Tatua Krakatawa after Tua's tattoo, his arm sleeve that he got back in August, that I think looks so good. Those Polynesian tattoos, I wish I could get one, because I mean I can't really get one because I'm not really ethnically tied to that, but I would. I mean those look good. And like even the simple things in fantasy football are fun. Like I love the team name puns, and I'm so excited to like make my team name next year for whichever player I draft. Like if I draft Rome Odunze, the rookie receiver, I'm gonna like do something like thinking about the Roman Empire, or like just do a random one like beer, wings, and football, or a team name of Shining Brightly if I draft the Sun God. I'm just thinking of these team pun names, and that's just fun. So here's everyone else's team names in my Train Across America League. We actually didn't do a league punishment this year, even though one was set up, because of a little situation behind the scenes that I don't need to mention. But we'll try and do a league punishment next year. And I think my brother is going to enter the league next year, so that should be thrilling. Here are the team names. We have Kelsey Undercover, who finished first, Mile High Chubb, who stole Kyron Williams away from me, and who actually survived with the Nick Chubb injury because of Josh Allen. That was a major component of that. Then we have Choo Choo for the Train Across America League name. I Like It When You Hurt Me, who finished fourth. King of the Hill, because he drafted Tyreek Hill, actually third overall, which was arguably one of the best non-ADP picks in the draft. That Pacheco in the second round or the third round was like way ahead of ADP, but that was like a great pick. I think and King of the Hill also drafted CeeDee Lamb at the end of the second round, and that paid off in the back half of the season. And then we have me, Tatua Krakatawa, number 7, Steeler Virginity, number 8, Robbie Twins, because he had Bijan Robinson and also the Robinson from the Redskins, Brian Robinson. Then we have Rochester Moneyball Raiders, and then his name is now Here to Zero, but he changed that in like the last few weeks. His team name before that was Chase Dat Bag with 2 exclamation points. And yeah, that's my recap on this year's Fantasy Football League. I had a ton of fun. I only did 1 league. I do not recommend doing more than like 2 or 3 leagues. Like I can manage 2 or 3 teams, but anything past that, it's like starting to become like a full-time job or a part-time job. And no thank you. It's just supposed to be this little thing for entertainment. I miss, honestly, like going on my phone Wednesday morning and check what waiver players I got, or checking like on Sunday, like, oh, how my team is doing, just on the off chance, just scrolling through the matchups. I miss that little like here and there of something to do on my phone with fantasy football. But this off season, this rest is very needed. It's what makes everything enjoyable, is to have it taken away from you for a little bit. And now next year, after watching Keon Coleman in person at FSU, he is going to be drafted in my fantasy football league next year, and that is exciting. Also, Trey Benson, the FSU running back, might be drafted next year. I'll probably draft him, especially at the last round. Like, why not just throw a dart on the board? Jordan Travis, hopefully he's on a sticker. Hopefully he gets drafted in the upcoming draft. And, it just happens next year. The 2024 season is just a fresh start on everything. You get to draft a whole new team. I'm going to try and get Amon-Ra St. Brown in the first round, but depends what slot pick I get, because I won't know that until draft day, which that is also pretty exciting. I would love to have Puka on my team, but honestly, all the first round picks are pretty good. But P.S., I'm not going to draft Tyreek Hill no matter what. But there's months for that to decide, and as we conclude here, I do want to show my fantasy football time in the playoffs in just a little short video that's rolling right here. Yeah, that's the Aaron Rodgers highlights for the Jets this season. And that was my time in the fantasy football playoffs. I was right in, and then I went right out. It's that Simpsons meme of like grabbing the hat and placing it back and then walking right out. Yeah, I wasn't in the fantasy football playoffs for long. We had a 6-team playoff bracket out of the 10 teams in the league. We might do 12 teams next year, and we also might do half PPR over PPR. And I don't think we're going to do Superflex next year, and I don't think we're doing a Dynasty League yet, even though that's something that I would love to try, but that takes like serious commitment. You have to have a group of people that are dedicated to fantasy football for that. And overall, a fantastic experience that I can truly enjoy now through losing, with the adjustments that I've made since my first time doing fantasy football. Everything just becomes better with experience. It's the same with doing anything. Like, as you go through college more, you start to get to pick up these like little habits that make the experience better. Or going through something such as running for many, many years, your process gets more efficient. And through getting more efficient, the overall experience becomes more enjoyable. That was how I treated fantasy football this year in 2023. I look forward to doing it for many years to come, hopefully with the same group of people. And yeah, that's it. Training Across America, co-commissioner right here. And I'll see everyone in 2024 on August for draft day.
Too blind, too dumb to realize that you should have drafted Flowers before all them. Now he will devour when you run press man, burn in your favorite corner cause you thought he was the man. Now Flowers is dancing, but he's dancing with a Ravens fan.
Oh my god, I said I was gonna get to laugh at word victim. Bijan Robinson! Boo! To be fair, I do remember Eric dick riding Bijan before he even got drafted. So
RB off the board.
All the narratives about it, I am only good with Tyreek, and you're right. That is the only time I am at my best. You're right. I'm only good when Jalen's in. I could care less about it. Like, sure, if Jalen and those guys aren't out, like, I'm only as good as Raheem Mostert allows me to be. Like, that's what the narrative needs to be, and we're able to win games, and we're able to go where we want to go as a team. I am the worst football player if that's what you want. Like, I don't care. Like, I really don't. So whatever it is, whatever you need on your show, like, take clips out of what I just said. Do what you need to do. Like that. I'm just here to do my job, and my job is to help our guys win.